Okay, you guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at DaVinci Resolve for video editing. We're just going to look at all the different parts of the program. There's a ton of stuff in here, and it's such a great, powerful program. And then once we're done looking at all of the important parts, then we're going to dive into an actual video edit. Okay, so once your DaVinci is already open, what we want to do is look down at the bottom here because these are the main sections that we want to understand, okay? Now, the first section over here, this is your media pool, okay? So when we're in this section, we're able to drag clips in and just start getting the files into the program, okay? So really this is just an organizational section. You can drop individual files, or if you have a whole folder or card of files, you can just drag and drop. Alternatively, you could click File and go Import and then go find your media that way. But you could also just drag and drop clips as well. So pretty easy stuff. Now, the next one over, this area is for cutting. So this is a spot where you could start chopping up your footage and also, get yourself organized for the actual editing. Okay. So this is your cut folder. Now, the next one over, this one's the main one, the most important one. Okay, this is called the Edit tab, right here in the middle. You're going to do most of your work in the Edit tab. I don't actually even cut in the Cut tab, and everyone has their own process with this stuff. So some people might, but a lot of people I talk to and a lot of people I look at also we just go right into the edit tab because you can do all your cutting in here as well. But if you like this better and you have a process and you want to go with it, that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But I do tell my students that you could absolutely just go right for this edit tab, and everything you need to do, you can do in here. Now, one thing I want to point out is that, okay, this first tab was our media pool for dragging and dropping our clips, but every section you're going to notice has a media pool. So once your clips are in, and we're going to see this when we actually start the editing as well, once your clips are in this main media pool, you can access a media pool in all these sections as well. So like in this cut tab, you're seeing the media pool here. When we go over to the edit tab over here, there again is your media pool. So that's pretty handy. Now, alternatively, you don't even have to go to this first media pool. You could actually, like I said, start right in the edit tab, and I just dump my footage right into this media pool. And once it's in here, you will see it in here and in here as well. Okay, and I'm going to show you this again when we start our actual video edit. Now, let's go over one and check out what everything else does. So this one over here is called the Fusion tab. Fusion, this is kind of like if you've ever looked at Adobe After Effects, this is motion graphics and adding motion to text and to our visuals and just all things motion, okay? Now, the next one over is our color tab. There are a ton of options for coloring our video. In this tutorial, we're just going to cover the basics in this color wheel section, okay, this primaries color wheel, and we're going to take a look at all of our options in here. Essentially just the basics to get a video, to the right exposure, to lift some shadows, to work on our white balance, all of the essentials. But just so you know, there are a ton of powerful options in here, and all of your curve stuff. There's some stuff where we can deep dive for skin tones, power windows, which are really fun to use, and tracking, and all sorts of awesome stuff. But for the sake of this tutorial, just as an intro to video editing, we are going to stick primarily to this section here in the color wheels. Now, beside that over here is our audio section. This is called Fairlight. So everything that we're going to want to do for cleaning up our audio is going to be in this Fairlight tab. So we will spend a good chunk of time in here as well working on audio, and I'll show you how I like to approach it. And then the next one over is our Deliver tab. Okay, so in this tab over here, this is everything we need for exporting our final video. Okay, so we have our Media tab over here. We have our Cut tab over here, our Edit tab, which is the one we're going to spend the most time in, and then we have Fusion, and we have our color tab, and then we have our audio, which is called Fairlight, and then we have our deliver tab. Now, if you look up here to the top left, there's a few things to note. We're hovering over the media pool over here, but next to it over here, this is our effects tab. Okay, this one is important because this is where you're going to find things like text and titles, video transitions, and you'll have to scroll through. There's a ton of options and things to play with in here. It's really awesome, but you kind of do have to just get to this effects area and start clicking through and just seeing what's there. Okay, audio transitions, like I said, titles, generators, all sorts of good stuff. More effects, plugins as well. So yeah, this effects area up at the top left is very important. You know, if you're putting on fades and cross dissolves and overlays and all sorts of stuff, it's all going to be in here. Okay, so as long as you know where that is. And you have an index, sound library, so you could start downloading music to this section as well, which is pretty cool. And then keyframes, which if you get into doing keyframes later in the edit, you can adjust all the keyframes over here. So that's good to know. And then over here, you've got a little mixer. So if you click on that guy, you'll notice your mixer for audio levels pops up over here. I tend to still do most of my audio work over here in Fairlight, so I'm not ever usually playing too much with that. I can hide it if I want more real estate over here. Okay. And then over here on the far right, we have our inspector tab. So in this area, there'll be more parameters for working on our video and our audio files. So now that we know where all of the main sections of DaVinci are located, we can actually start a new session and we'll dive into some editing. So to do that, here, I'll close this up. To do that, I go down here to the bottom. There's two little things you could click on. I'm going to click on the house here. And that opens up this window where we can start to create new projects. And you can also see the library of stuff that you've worked on before. If you just installed your DaVinci, you won't have anything. In my case, I've got a ton of different stuff here that I've worked on in the past. Okay, so now that we're actually ready to start a project, we'll click New Project. We'll give it a name, Tutorial Edit. We'll choose our location. So yeah, it already had my hard drive chosen, so we'll go with that. That's where it's going to get saved to, and then we'll hit create. And now we've got a new project that's named and we're organized and we're ready to go. I'm going right to my media tab, like I've mentioned, and I'm just going to open a folder. I have some footage ready to go here, and I'm simply just going to drag and drop the folder into the session. Now this thing here, change project frame rate, I do not, because I know that the project is set to 24 frames per second, and that's what my speaking is going to be. So I want to leave that. So I'm just going to click don't change. And now my footage is in. So before we can actually start cutting and putting this whole little video example together, there's a few preliminary things that have to happen. And, you know, everyone is going to have different types of video that they're editing or that they're working on. But the first thing that I have to do here is I have to sync up my nice audio file from a microphone to this file. Because right now this camera actually only had camera audio, but we had shotgun mics going into a Zoom recorder. So I've got a really nice audio file here.
And I thought that that's what was happening.
Okay, but this footage here, that's just camera audio. So what I want to do, and DaVinci is really easy for this. There's so many reasons why I love DaVinci, but what you do is you just highlight the file that you want, and then we're going to also highlight the audio file. I'm going to press Shift and click so that both are highlighted. And once they're both highlighted, I'm going to go Control click or right click if you're on a PC, and it opens up this little window here. And once I'm in here, I'm looking for audio sync. Okay, and then right here it says auto sync audio. Yes, we want to click that, and that's gonna assuming you've chosen the correct files. If you had the wrong file for whatever reason or as a mistake, it's not going to work. You'll get a little message saying it can't sync. But assuming you have the correct audio file, all you do is click it, and it's going to do its thing and magically sync it up. Oh, okay, so here, no, we didn't use timecode for this, so we just want to click on this one, waveform. So I want it to read the waveform from the video and the waveform on the audio file. So I'm going to click that. and hit sync. Great. So we can verify by double clicking this file here. And if we play it, I'm going to hit spacebar to play.
So yes, just the stress
And there we
as
go.
I've said, my health has been a battle.
Yeah, so now the nice audio is connected to this main shot, and we're ready to go. Now, you're going to notice right now that all of my footage is looking a little gray. So I shot this in what's called log or S-Log3 because I shoot on Sony. So I do need to add some color to this. Now, this tutorial isn't really a deep dive on how to work with log footage. I will save that for a separate video, but I'm going to quickly add a LUT to all of these clips in one shot here, just so we have some nicer color. And the way that I do that is I'm just going to highlight all of the clips by clicking on the first one, and then I'm going to shift and click on the last one so they're all highlighted. And then I'm going to right click, or for me, control click, and because I'm on a Mac, and then up here where it says LUT, if I hover over that, all my LUT options are here. Now there are some LUTs that are, LUT means lookup table. I don't want to go too much into it in this video, but we're going to add the color to the video essentially. There are LUTs that come with DaVinci, and then you can buy your own. So I've bought LUTs. You can make your own LUTs too, but I've bought LUTs that I've found online that I really like, and I've shared some with friends, and they've shared with me. So I've got some other ones in here as well. My favorite is this neutral A7S3 Legacy one. It's an ARRI Alexa LUT, so it's got a slight bit of that film ARRI movie sort of look to it. I love it. It looks great on my Sony footage. So I'm just going to click that. And once I click it, it's going to get applied to all of these clips that are highlighted. Okay. And that was quick. So you saw it right away. So now the footage has the nice audio connected to it. The LUTs are applied, so my color is there. And now essentially we're ready. Basically, the name of the game here is finding some of the spots that we like in her speaking, and I want to add it to the timeline. And then once I'm happy with that, I want to start building the story by putting the B-roll on top of her speaking, or you could call it the A-roll. Okay. So I'm going to double click her speaking, and what we need to do is just find a nice spot. Maybe we'll find like 20 or 30 seconds of an important part that she's discussing, and we'll toss that in as our base. Okay, so I'm going to double click, and let's let it play. Well, we're kind of in the middle here. Let's just see what she's saying.
Okay, I'm going to answer it twice. I'm going to do two different stories, okay? So I did not know that this was a cardiac arrest at the time it was happening. Unfortunately, I do suffer from a...
Okay, so she's talking about cardiac arrest.
And while the ambulance, if my mother had not performed chest compression, leaning in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
My guider. And so we attended a lot of activity that just before the incident, I was in the clinical portion of me. And I have poop bags. Okay. Well, again, a healthy young girl. I was also the emergency management program manager with St. John Ambulance. To ensure that across the province, we have an emergency response unit that is mobilized and ready to go that my nieces and nephews and my daughter. Okay. Like that I wouldn't. My mom began doing CPR immediately on me, and they called 911. And, fortunately for us, the fire department major, it defined a lot of my life. So from me, it went from, I'm feeling a little bit fluid. Get my story as an example.
Her Christmas party was even better. Why is it important for people to learn CPR and first aid?
Okay, so let's find a nice spot that we can throw in and start putting some B-roll over top to put this little story together. So I'm going to play from here and see where we're at in her speaking.
Okay, now we'll move on. Why is it important for people to learn CPR and first aid?
Okay, so the interviewer asked the question, and now she's about to answer. So what I'm going to do is I need to set an in point. We need to tell DaVinci where we're starting this video or this clip. Now, to set an in point, you use I. It's called a shortcut. So click the letter I on your keypad, and when you click that, you're going to notice that this little this little dot, this little gray marker is here, okay? That's our in point. So we're gonna now let it play, and when I'm happy and I'm ready to end it, I'm gonna click O and set an out point, okay? But let's just let it play first. So we've set our in point by pressing I. Now we're gonna let it play.
I think learning first aid and CPR it's not just important, it should be mandatory, and I wish it was mandatory. If you look at my story as an example, again, a healthy young girl has flu-like symptoms and goes into cardiac arrest. And if my mother had not performed chest compressions, if my mother had not performed CPR on me that day, yeah.
Oh, you just watched it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so we didn't like that she got interrupted there, so we're gonna have to start again. So the interviewer is gonna tell her to start, and then I'm gonna set a new in point. So let's play.
Okay. Why is it important for people to learn CPR and first aid?
Okay, so there, let's hit I. Now we've got our new in point, and now let's see what she says.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life, those 2 minutes saved my life and have given me life. And from that, I've gone on to perform CPR on patients in my life as a paramedic and also teach people how to perform CPR. So I think it's absolutely critical to learn. I think it's a skill set that every expectant mother or expected parent should know, because you never know when you're faced with those critical times. And really, that CPR is meant for before 911 is able to get to, before EMS is able to be dispatched. So really, it's that critical time before you're able to get help that.
Okay, this is going on for way too long. So, okay, so we've got our new in point here. Now let's just let it play, and we'll find a spot to end it, okay?
Just for your loved. Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Why is it important for people to learn CPR and first aid?
Okay, so we have our new in point. Let's let it play and let it run for a few seconds, and then we'll set an out point and we'll toss it in the timeline.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life, those 2 minutes saved my life and have given me life. And from that, I've gone on to perform CPR on patients in my life as a paramedic.
Right there. Okay, so on paramedic, I'm going to stop it there because she does go on for quite a while, but for this example, we'll just make this a short clip. But I'm going to hit O and set my out point. So now you can see these two little dots here. So everything that's in between is what's going to go on the timeline. Now, when you hover your mouse on the screen, you get these two little things here. This is a film strip and this is an audio wave file, okay? Now, what's important here to note is that if you just want the video, if you didn't need the audio, you could click this film strip and drag just the video file in like that, okay? Now, I don't want to actually do that because I want the audio too, but I just wanted you to know that you could have the option to do just the video file. So let's go back. You could alternatively have done just the audio file by clicking that guy there and drag just the audio in. But we can undo that. If you want them both connected, you click in the middle of the footage here and you click and you drag it in, and then you're going to see that it's audio and video connected together. Okay. And because this is speaking, that's what we want. So we'll toss that in. And let's just let it play to verify we got what we needed.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today.
Perfect. Okay, so now that it's in, there's a few things I want to mention to you. If you wanted to cut the clip, if there were things you wanted to cut out, like let's say we wanted to stop it earlier somewhere in here, and we wanted to make a cut, one important shortcut you should know, and you'll find these in our notes as well, is that B is for blade tool. So if you hit B on your keyboard, it's going to turn your mouse into this blade looking guy, and we could do a cut by pressing on it, okay? So B for blade is how you cut the footage, okay? And if you wanted to get yourself back to that arrow so that, because you're done, you've made your cut, you have to press A A is the shortcut. A for arrow gets you back to this pointer arrow, okay? And then you can decide what to do with this clip now that you've made the cut. Okay, so I'm going to undo that because I don't actually want to make the cut yet, but you do really need to understand that B and A you're going to be using that a lot, okay? Blade, and then A gets you back to normal. So if you're doing a ton of cuts, you would hit B, and then you could make cuts all over the place, right? That's your cut tool, okay? In Premiere, it's C for cut. I'm pretty sure Premiere uses C, but yeah, DaVinci, it's B for blade, okay? So we'll undo all that stuff again. I'm going to hit A to get my mouse back. And if you haven't noticed already, the tools are located up here. And the things that are located up here do tell you what the shortcut is. So you can see blade edit mode, and you see the B. You see this guy, the arrow, selection mode. So A, okay. I say A for arrow. They say selection mode. Same deal. So B and A, you could do it from up here, but it's quicker to just use your shortcuts, okay? And then there's other ones you can check out as well. But for the purpose of this video, for now, we're just going to stick with B and A, okay? Now, alternatively, if you didn't need to make a cut, but you needed to make something shorter from one side, you can grab a clip on either end and you can trim it by going this way or lengthening it out this way, okay? I'm going to undo that again. But yeah, if you wanted it to start sooner, you can just click and drag, okay? If you wanted it to go longer out this way, just click and drag. Okay, easy. Now, let's put this back over here. So now that that's in and you know how to find footage and you know how to do an in and an out and get the footage into the timeline, now let's just do a few more. Let's find some B-roll and put a little quick story together, okay? So she does mention her mom, and in the B-roll, we've got footage of her and her mom and her dog walking into this place. So let's go find a nice spot and we'll make some in and out points and get it onto the timeline, okay? So I'm just going to scroll through. Let's see how that looks.
Come on, inside. Well, I actually can tell you. So when we responded to the wildfires.
I wonder if I have a shot where it shows the dog. I wasn't quite wide enough there. Let's check out this shot here. I wonder if I shot it wide enough to show the dog. Ooh, yes, I did. I just had to move this around a bit. Okay, so in this shot, I might like this one better. Let's go with this. Okay, so about here, let's hit I for an in point. We'll let it play.
There was no, like, we can't take hotel rooms away from an evacuee, right? So that's why we put them in here.
No, you know what? I didn't like the shot. It was a little bit jittery off the top, but I liked once the door was already open. I liked it about here. Okay, I'm going to make my in point here. Let's let it play.
So that's why we put them in here.
That was a smoother camera shot.
Is this where you were?
Okay, and then we'll hit our out. And then we don't need any audio in this because this is B-roll. We just need the visual. So this isn't a good example of where we're just going to click this film strip and we're going to click and drag and pop the footage in. And it's going to live on this layer up here because speaking or our A-roll will be on this section at the bottom, and then on this track up here we'll layer in all of our B-roll. Okay, so now I would like to go re-listen to what she's saying because I want to find the right spot for this. So let's go back and listen.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had
So maybe when she says mother, we can start a clip that has her mother in it.
Not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the 2 longest minutes of her life.
Wow, you know what? We've got shots of them hugging. Let's see what's here. There's a bunch of stuff here. Let's see. Oh, we've got shots of her doing the CPR. She says everyone should learn CPR. Maybe that should go in earlier on in this clip. Okay, so let's do another in point. Not the laughing. This. And then an out. We'll click O. Okay, maybe we could put this in earlier on.
I think learning first aid and
so when she says first aid,
CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense because that's That's following the story. She says CPR or first aid, and then we have a clip as B-roll that does exactly what she's talking about. And that's what we're looking for when you're putting stories together. You do want to match up visuals to what is being said. So that's great. I'm glad I found that clip. I'm glad I shot that clip. Now, this gets us to an interesting little... Now, this gets us to something I want to talk about. I can see some stuff in the shot that doesn't need to be there. So what we could do now is go over to this inspector tool. We talked about this, or this inspector tab, where we have the parameters. And what we need to do is we need to reframe this clip. Okay, so I'm going to go to the zoom area here, and I'm going to just slide this to the side, and now I don't have to see whatever that was over there. It looks like that some of our audio stuff was in the corner there. Okay, so I want to zoom it so that I don't see that. I actually didn't want to see a bunch of this wall on the left side either, so I'm going to zoom in a bunch, but then I'm going to reposition it down here under position. So I'm just going to slide that over. I don't want to see the mics. Now I'm going to slide this guy over and bring this up. So there's a lot that I don't want to see here. So we just kind of have to play with this. Let's zoom it in more. Let's bring it up more. We shot it in 4K, so there is a lot of resolution. So we have some options for reframing. You just don't want the distractions in the shot. So I want it framed so that I don't see that audio stuff. Like, that's not bad. That's not bad. And 1.20, we do have more room to zoom in because it's 4K again. So I might go even more, bring it higher up. Okay. And then do we have room to go this way without seeing that stand? Yes. Okay, so now that's better. We got rid of the stand. We got her more in the center, and maybe we can bring it up just a bit. Nope, we're out of room there. Okay, for now, let's leave it like that. Let's start it from the beginning, and let's see how this looks.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved.
Now, I didn't like that she started up like this. So this is a good chance for us to practice trimming by just using this, by just clicking and dragging this over. So I'm going to click it. I want her to be already down, or pretty much down. Okay, I didn't like that little motion for some reason. But I liked where the clip started, so I'm going to back this guy back over here. And now it starts with her down.
CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
Yes, and it gets right to it. Oh, but I don't like that she came back up right there. So I want it to end here. So I don't have to do a blade tool. I don't have to cut it. I can just click and drag this over like that. Okay, so now let's watch from the beginning.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
Now, let's see what else we have. Maybe we can do a few types of B-roll in this one spot.
Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed.
You know what? I like this shot where they're standing and talking. I don't even know if I like this walking in one. I'm gonna delete that actually. So just click and delete it. But I do like this shot here where they're talking and the dog is there and she's petting the dog. That's a helper dog. Super, super cute. So here, let's make an in point. So we'll click I. Okay. And an out point right there. Let's just bring in just the video. And I wonder if we do 2 B-roll clips back to back, what that looks like. So let's let this play.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me.
Okay, now I do think that the B-roll is coming in a little rushed. I think we need to leave a little more time of her speaking before the B-roll happens. We may decide we want her name on screen too, so we should save a little bit of time for some text. So I'm just gonna highlight both clips by clicking and dragging like this. Both clips are highlighted, and let's just drag them over just a little bit, and let's let it play.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but
critical, and then let's start it there.
Learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother.
Right on my mother is actually where I'd like her mother clip to start. And then that'll buy us some more time up here in case we want to put her name on. So let's play and let's see now.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today.
Yeah, and then let's shorten this. So I'm going to click and drag this over. We'll shorten this up just a little bit.
Mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life, those 2 minutes.
Okay, and you know what? We have some walking shots. Let's just load this thing up with some extra B-roll. So we've got, I know I had some nice walking shots here. Let's find one.
But then a lip reader's gonna be like, what are you guys talking about? Silly.
Good. Okay, let's toss that one in. But I'm gonna let some speaking happen first. So we showed some B-roll clips. I'm gonna let it jump back to the speaking.
And probably the two longest minutes of her life, those.
And then we can go back to some B-roll. So we're just trying to let this thing jump around a little bit so it's interesting. So it's not just on her for a long time, but not too much B-roll. You just want to find a happy medium. So let's watch and see what we have now. Let's go back to the beginning.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life.
Yeah, you know what? I'm starting to think let's just swap these clips out. This one over here, where they're standing and talking in the room already, this should actually go where this one is and vice versa. So I'm just gonna go and move this guy on top and just save that spot. But this guy, I want it over here because this kind of introduces her mom to the scene. So to me, it makes more sense to start with this guy.
Mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today.
And let's cut it before they look up. Okay, so about here, we'll drag this shot back over. Then we jump back to her speaking.
Here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life.
And then bring this guy back down.
Those 2 minutes saved my life and have given me life. And from that, I've gone on to perform CPR on patients in my life as a paramedic.
So, okay, so this is looking good. We've got some good B-roll examples, and the pacing is starting to feel right to me. So now I think what I'd like to do is add just a little bit of a title up in the beginning with her name on it, okay? This is pretty common. We'll use what's called a lower third. So if we go up to the effects panel over here on the top left, go down to where it says titles, click on that. Now there's so many options. This stuff becomes pretty subjective, but I'm just for an easy way to start looking for just a good preset, just something simple that's a lower third at the bottom left. And I just want to put her name in. So something very, very simple. And you can see as we scroll through some examples, I'm just looking for something on the bottom left. Okay. Sample text. Oh, and it comes in with a little effect. You know, that's nice. That's not bad. So all you have to do here is when you find one that you're happy with, just click and drag it in. And it looks just like a video file, okay? So, and now to keep ourselves organized, what I tend to do is I tend to keep that on its own track so that I've got my speaking track here. Then I've got this track with my B-roll, and then the track above has my text on it, okay? Now, if you've clicked and you're highlighting your text, then you have to jump over to our inspector, and this is where you have all the parameters. So first of all, we can type her name, so we can delete that, and I don't actually know her name. I'd have to go back to my notes, and because this was a while ago, so maybe we'll make up a name. What should we make her name? It could be anything. Deborah. Let's go with Deborah, okay? So Deborah, what's Deborah's last name? Maybe Deborah's last name is Gibson. Deborah Gibson, like Debbie Gibson. Okay, so let's go with that. Her name is looking like it's a little too far over on the right here, and I'd like to slide it over to the left. So to do that, I'm actually going to get out of this title area, and I'm going to go over here to settings, which kind of has my more global adjustments. And here's where I can go to this position area, and I can just slide. You see how the numbers change as I'm hovering? I can just slide it over to the left a little bit. I just didn't want it on top of her hand. I wanted it a little bit more over this way. And then we just have to decide on, is it good as far as height, or should it come down a little bit, or should it go higher? You know, this stuff you can spend some good time with and make some creative decisions on where it should land. I'm thinking somewhere in the middle of her hand like this would be just fine. Okay, so now let's play and see how that looks.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
Okay, now something else I'm going to point out here is that for the start with this title on, I do want this title to be on the left for alignment, but it's looking a little funny that she's more to the center. So I actually want to crop her and reframe this shot. So I'm going to click on her main speaking shot. Now, I don't want to do this to everything. I just want to do it in the beginning. So I'm going to hit B. I'm going to make a cut over here. Okay. And what I want to do is I just want to reframe this little intro section. So we're going to go up to zoom. I'd like to get her more on camera right. So I'm going to zoom it in a bunch like this. We have a lot of room to work with because it's in 4K. And then I'm going to bring it down so that the headroom is a little bit more like that. And then let's slide her over even more camera right, like that. We have some room still. Yeah, that looks better. I'm just aiming for her to be more on that third so that her and my intro title here is just feeling a little bit more like a properly framed situation, okay? It just felt like she was too in the center and too wide for this title shot. So to me, that looks better, okay? And then later, we'll have the wider shot when we jump over here, and that's just fine. So let's just play now, and now let's see what this looks like.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life, those 2 minutes saved my life and have given me life. And from that, I've gone on to perform CPR on patients in my life as a paramedic.
Perfect. Okay, so we've actually come quite a long way now. We've learned about all of the important sections in DaVinci. Then we imported our footage. We started, we added LUTs to the footage, so we colored the footage. What did we do after that? Oh, then we learned about in and out points. Then we learned about in and out points and how to drag the footage in, and then we started cutting this up. And yeah, so we have done a lot at this point. Now, what I would like to do before we export this clip, I want to talk about the color tab, and then we'll hop over and look at some audio. So over here, the color tab, if you click on that, now, there's a lot that can happen here. We're just going to do a couple simple adjustments. So this section here where my mouse is, this is called a node, okay? There's not too much I want to get into in this for now, but what I want you to know is that you can add as many nodes as you need to layer up colors and effects and different things, but we're just going to do some simple basic adjustments, and we're going to stick with one node for now, just so it's not overwhelming. Okay, so now in the color tab, the first thing I want to do is add some exposure. I just want to boost it up a tiny little bit. So this is our node, this little guy here. This is called a node. You can add many nodes, but we're just going to stick with one, just simply for the sake of this video. But where you want to be in this color tab is here where it's called color wheels. Okay, there's a ton of different options, but we're dealing with this area called the color wheels. So in this area, if we want to bring up our exposure, it's gain. Okay, this gain wheel, we can just drag that a little bit and bring up the exposure. So that's all I needed to do, just a little. I thought I just needed a smidge of exposure, not too much. So the gain and the gain wheel over here, okay? Now, there is a window here and some highlights happening on the left side. So I might tone down the highlights over here where it says highlights. I can just click and drag to the side so that the highlights come down a little bit. Now I don't want to do it too much because I don't want to bring the highlights down on her face too much because her face is sitting pretty nicely. I just wanted a tiny little bit to take the edge off of things. So I'm just going to do it about there. That -5 or -5.5 looks pretty good to me. Okay. And there's not a lot that I would do to this, you know, but you see a lot of the basic parameters that you would see in other video editing programs or even in photo editing programs. They all exist in this color wheel area, right? You've got this color boost, shadows, highlights, saturation, if you want to add or subtract saturation, hues, okay, all this stuff. Just so you know, gamma is your mids, and lift is your shadows, okay? So it's like your shadows, your midtones, and then gain is your overall, okay? I'm just going to reset those. Now you do have a color temperature over here, so if you wanted to make it warmer or cooler, you can play with that area. I think that I actually had my white balance dialed in when I shot it, so I'm going to undo that, but if you ever needed to, it's over here. You do have your eyedropper tool as well, so you could click the eyedropper tool and click on a white or a gray, and see how that works. Look, that's actually not bad. We could actually, you know what? I'll undo that. I don't know. I could actually argue to do that little eyedrop tool. That wasn't bad. Let's try it again. No, you know what? I liked how warm I had it. I'm going to stick with mine. Okay. I like my white balance, but if you needed to do it, that's where that exists. And your contrast and all the usual things are in this area, okay? And again, if I want to see my before and after, all I have to do is click on the left here at the bottom of this node, and it'll turn off the effects. So now that it's off, you can see the exposure is gone. So we'll click it to turn it back on. There it is. Now, another way to check your before and after for color is actually up here too, where it says bypass color grades and fusion effects. So you could have just clicked on and held down that as well, okay, to see your before and after. So let's turn that back on. So, but you can do it from here. There's two ways. You can click here, which turns it off, or you can check your color by clicking here for your before and after as well. Okay, so just one other thing to note is that you do, for the purpose of this video, have to go clip by clip here, okay? There are more advanced ways to color where we can group things and do them more as a batch, but for now, there's such few clips here. I would just go one by one and just quickly add some gain, bump up the exposure just a little bit, and that's probably all I need to do for this example. Here, on this clip, I might just bring up the exposure a smidge, and then I might use the eyedropper tool over here and click on the wall, maybe on a gray area. Yeah, we'll do that for the white balance. Actually, it looks like I could bring the shadows up just a bit too, just so it pops them out a little bit more, like that. And then this last clip over here is actually pretty good. There's not a lot that I would do to that. Okay, so that's it. That's some basic color correction stuff that you would do in this color tab area. Now, we're not going to do it for this example, but there are other things like here you can see curves. Okay, there's a lot you could do with curves. There's some real advanced stuff here for working on skin tones and stuff. In this video, we're not going to focus on this stuff, but there's a ton of options for you to play with if you ever wanted to dig in. There's some tracking and stuff too. I do tracking in more of my video work as well, and power windows. So there's all sorts of stuff that exists here. For the sake of this video, I'm just sticking with basic color correction, okay? Now, so that's good for the coloring. The next thing I would do is I would just go over to my Fairlight section and see if we want to tidy up any audio, okay? So let's just resize this down like that. I'm just grabbing here to resize this so the video is a little bit bigger. I just wanted to play and I want to hear the audio and see what I want to do.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
Good. Okay. The audio is really nice. The shotgun mic that we used was a pretty expensive one. And it is really great sounding audio, but there's a couple things I do just to clean up regardless. And what that is if I scroll over to the right here, now you may not feel comfortable doing this in the beginning times for your editing, but just so you can see, there are some things called dynamics and EQ over in the edit section, okay? Actually, let's give ourselves a little extra room so you can see that better. Right there, okay? Now, I go to dynamics here where this green line is, and if I double click it, it opens up this little thing. And what I'm looking for here is compression, okay? So what I want to do is I want to open up this drop down box, and I'm going to click on dialog compression. This is a built-in preset of compression for your audio. So if I click it,
just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day
basically it gives the audio a little extra fullness. It just makes it gives it a little bit more fullness, more body, if you will. Okay. And then once you've done that as well, and again, that's a built-in preset that DaVinci already had. So I didn't really have to do much. I just know that compression gives audio more body and more fullness. So I always add that. And then you do have extra level or gain over here. So let's play.
that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of.
So I'm just going to move that up a little bit. I didn't need to do it too much. I don't want the audio levels to be too far in the red or any red at all for that matter. So I just put it up a little bit, just give it a little extra boost.
Her life, those 2 minutes saved my life and have given me life. And from that, I've gone on to perform CPR on patients in my life as a paramedic.
3.1. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to close that up. Now there is an EQ here as well, and one that I like to do, they have all these built-in presets again for EQing. What that does is that's taking it gives you the ability to take away or add frequencies to the speaking. Now you don't have to be an audio wizard to do this stuff. You can just use some of their presets, and what I like to do is I like to use this female lav fixer one, and if it was a male I would use the male one. Sorry, not the fixer, the lav finisher. And what I like to do is use this female lav mic fixer.
Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR.
So again, it's adding more body and finality to the audio. It's just, if you listen to the before
on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today.
It's still more, it sounds like there's more fullness to the audio. So, and I'm by no means an audio specialist. I am a video and a photo specialist. I do have a background in music. I do play drums, but I'm not an audio technician. So I'm using their presets to do this stuff. Now, if you yourself are an audio technician and you have background in this stuff, you're going to know exactly where to look and what to drag for these things. I use the presets because I'm not an audio tech. But the presets work great for me. I at least know that they exist and that they do clean up my audio, okay? So I'm going to leave it with that. I added compression. I added this female lav mic fixer, and now we are good to go for audio.
Perform CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here.
So it sounds fuller. It sounds more complete. I boosted the levels just a little bit. And now the one final thing I'll show you guys as a trick in audio, if we go back to our media tab, okay, this guy in the middle here, if we go all the way over here to audio, we have a tool called AI voice isolation. Okay, now this is only in the paid studio version. I don't believe that the free version has it, but I like to add this if there's a lot of room noise, or maybe there's, you know, some hum or air conditioning or any sort of background stuff. So let's play this for a second.
In CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
It's pretty darn clean as it is, but let's just click this to hear what would happen.
I think learning first aid in CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory, just for your loved ones alone. So
oh yeah, okay. So when you do click it, even though this was clean audio, it still cleaned it up even more. And I can hear that whatever minute background noise was in that room, it's gone as soon as I hit that AI voice isolation.
First aid in CPR is not only critical, but it
now, I don't need it at full. I'm actually going to back it down to maybe 65 or... Yeah, let's try that.
is not only critical, but it should be mandatory.
Beautiful. Love it. I'm going to leave it with that. I'm going to do it to this second half as well. So AI voice isolation, back it down to 65. So it's exactly the same as the last one.
Ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the too long.
Perfect. Quickly before we export, I think what I'd like to show you guys is subtitles. If you ever want to add subtitles to your videos, what you do is go up to the top under timeline. Okay, now this is new-ish for DaVinci. In the last little while, they've added this feature, but it's super handy. You go AI tools. Again, it's under timeline, and you go AI tools and create subtitle from audio. Okay. And all the default settings are just fine for me. So all I'm going to do is hit create, and it's going to take a read of what she's saying. And it's going to make us our subtitles. Okay. And it's just going to take a second, and then you'll see it'll place the subtitles in the timeline for us. And there they are. Okay. So now, as we play the video,
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the
okay, great. So if we wanted to make any adjustments, what you have to do is highlight these. So I'm just going to click and drag and get them all highlighted. And then here in the inspector panel, we have captions where we could actually go in and change, and we could add, if a word was spelt wrong or made a mistake, we could go in and type and fix it here, which is awesome. Although it did do a pretty darn good job. And then if you wanted to move the spacing of it, which I want to do, again, I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to go to track over here. So this is where we could choose to bring it down or up. I think down or up, what's better? I don't want it to be in the way of this. That looks too high. Let's go under. Okay, let's leave it there. Just for example's sake, we'll leave it under. But that way, now you've got some subtitles.
First aid and CPR.
It'll look nicer once her name is gone. We would have to go in and reframe that name as well, but let's just leave it.
Mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today.
Okay, that'll be just fine. If you did want to change the font, as long as they're all highlighted, you could go in here and you could make those any font. We'll just leave it how they have it for this example, but that's where you would do that, okay? Okay, so now that we're ready to export, we'll hop over here to the Deliver tab. Okay, we'll give it a name. Interview, let's call it Interview Example. Interview Example. Okay, and save it to our hard drive, which we did. Now, because we do have captions, we're not going to do a lot to these export video settings because all the default stuff is perfect. If I did want to change the size, I could choose different sizes in here, but I want to leave the timeline resolution. It's 4K and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to stick with that timeline resolution. Everything else is totally fine, but under this export subtitle section, this is what has to be clicked because I want the subtitles to show up on the video, and I don't want them as a separate file. I want them burned into the video. That means when the video is exported and I play the video later, the subtitles will be in the video, okay? If you didn't and you did it as a separate file, you would get like a document file with just text, which is weird. We don't need that. We need it in the video, so burn into video. Now, once we're set with that, click over here, Add to Render Queue. Okay, it pops the job over here. It's in a queue. Now you could, at this point, go and edit some more videos, and you could load up this queue with a ton of stuff and save the actual exporting till the very end. So that's a nice way to do things if you had more to do. In this case, we're just using this video, so I will click over here, Render All, and it's going to render, and we are essentially done the video edit. Okay, so the rendering is done. So now we'll go over to my hard drive. Now we'll see our video here. If we click on it.
I think learning first aid and CPR.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see the subtitles are burned into the video. It's perfect. I really like this new framing. Remember, we reframed her and brought her to camera right over here. I'm really happy with that. Let's play it again.
I think learning first aid and CPR is not only critical, but it should be mandatory. Just for your loved ones alone. So if my mother had not performed CPR on me the day that I collapsed, I would not be here today. And probably the two longest minutes of her life, those 2 minutes saved my life and have given me life. And from that, I've gone on to perform CPR on patients in my...
Okay, perfect. Looks great to me. I hope that was helpful. This is a long video, so if you made it to the end, congratulations. But please refer back to this and stop and pause when you need to. And yeah, thank you. I will see you in the next video.